Good morning. On behalf of the Center for Professional Excellence, it is our pleasure to welcome you to our second annual Tech Talks. I'm John Furnell.
And I'm Rachel Cobb. In our roles here at the college, we have the unique opportunity to serve as consultants, coaches, and mentors to our faculty and staff. And through those relationships, we have uncovered a wealth of ideas and stories worth sharing. We're proud to provide a platform for you all to experience firsthand these innovative ideas and inspirational stories.
So today we're featuring 5 members of our GTC community. We ask out of respect for our speakers that you make sure your devices are silenced and that there's no flash photography.
And with that, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy Tech Talks, our thoughts, our stories, our people.
It was not very often that I was able to spend the night with my grandparents when I was a kid. You see, they lived in a secondhand, small Airstream trailer on a campground in Virginia. When I say small, I mean they had very little space for anyone to sleep over. If they had overnight guests, that meant that they lowered their kitchen table, and that became the twin bed. When I was about 10, my sister and I were invited to spend the night, and we were very excited about this. About a day into our trip, we were outside in the middle of summer. We complained that we were hot, we were bored, and there was nothing good to eat. My grandmother took my hand and took me inside the camper. She opened the refrigerator and took out a small handful of apples. She pulled out some flour, some sugar, some cinnamon, and a few other ingredients that I don't really remember. Within a few minutes, she had peeled and cored the apples, had wrapped the apples in a dough, and placed them on a small cookie sheet. She slipped them into an oven, a very small oven, think easy bake, and began to cook. Within a few minutes, the camper began to smell like cinnamon and apples. A few more minutes later, she took them out of the oven, and they were the most beautiful golden brown apple dumplings that I had ever had. From that afternoon, I remember 2 things. 1, my grandma makes a mean apple dumpling, and 2, my grandmother could make something out of nothing. As a child, that was magic. What I did not know that I knew and I learned as an adult was that my grandparents lived in this secondhand trailer, not because they were on a grand adventure, but because they had no other viable housing options. My grandparents lived in poverty. My grandmother had lived in poverty her entire life. She was the second oldest of 8 children. When her older brother Earl passed away suddenly, they were living on a rural farm in Appalachian, West Virginia. She had a father that did not value education, and with the death of her older brother, extra hands were needed on the farm. So he took my grandmother out of class at the 3rd grade. She did not finish the 4th grade. My grandmother entered her adulthood functionally illiterate, married young, and raised a family of her own who lived in poverty throughout their childhood. None of my grandmother's children would graduate from high school. All would enter adulthood, marrying young and managing poverty on their own terms throughout their life. My mother would marry at 17, start a family, would not complete her degree, but eventually did get her GED many years later after having a family of her own. At the time of my grandmother's death, she had buried an infant son, an adult son, a husband of 45 years, and her independence from a catastrophic stroke that took the use of her dominant arm that she had lived with for 15 years. Despite all the adversity that she faced, despite all of the heartache, all the challenges that she lived through, my grandmother was one of the most beautiful people I knew, inside and out. She was gentle, she was kind with her words, she was patient, she was wise beyond any of her education which would show. My Mom used to tell me that my grandma made poor bearable. She had this unique skill of rising above her circumstances and taking everybody with her where she went. I used to think of my grandma as being a tough old lady. What I realize now was that she was far more than tough or hardy or gritty. She was resilient. Resilience has been studied for decades. It's understood to be the process of experiencing adversity, finding meaning in that adversity, and then applying that meaning to a new situation. Basically, you grow from your struggle. It's been studied for decades. It has been considered a continuum, a cycle, a process, a trait, and now more recently a skill. We know through research that resilience can be bolstered and supported with intentional practice. The other thing we know about resilience now is that when you look at a population of resilient people, the common factor they share is that they all report having a champion, a cheerleader, a role model that was consistently available to them throughout their life. I have been blessed by having so many people love me well. But if I am honest, my very favorite cheerleader, my favorite champion, and my best role model was my grandma. Like my mother, I would marry at 17, I would leave home, I would graduate early, and I would enroll in community college. And it's at that point our family history changed. I was the first person on either side of my family to attend college. Within the first semester of college, I found out that I was pregnant and realized very quickly that my ability to continue into college was going to stop. I did not have the resources to continue to go to class and raise a baby. It was at that time that I really trusted the role model of my grandmother, of doing something really hard, even when you couldn't see the next steps in front of you. I learned through her role model to take a deep breath and to walk forward, to apply lessons and be stronger because of them. About a year later, I found myself as a single mom with an 8-week-old baby, which was not the plan. I had no money, very few resources. I had unstable housing, and I had no education. Reasonably so, I was in a panic. I didn't know what to do, so I went back where I started. I went to the same community college that I left a year before. I met with an academic advisor, explained the situation I found myself in, and told her, I don't have 4 years to get my life together. I have maybe 2. She listened kindly and knowingly smiled, and she said, Tracy, I think you need to go to nursing school. And I blinked really hard. I believe I laughed a little bit, and I said, that is a really bad idea. I spent most of my childhood being known in my doctor's office for the kid that passed out or threw up every time you got near them with a needle. Never in my life did I think nursing was a good idea. And the more she talked and the more I tried to give her some other options, she convinced me that this was the way that I would have a consistent income and a career, that I would never feel the fear I felt in that moment again. So I filled out the applications. I signed all of the forms I needed to sign. I completed my FAFSA because we know we all have to do that every year. I wrapped up that office visit, picked up this 8-week-old baby, and carried her to my car, a 1982 Ford Escort that burned more oil than it did gas, clicked her in her car seat, and sat behind the steering wheel, and I cried. And then I cried some more. And then I did what every good daughter should do. I called my mom. And I shared with her what I had just decided, that I was going to nursing school, convinced that she would say, give me another idea, suggest a better alternative, talk some sense into me. And she did not. She did what I believe a good mother does, and that was to say, you've got this. Whatever lies in front of you, you can handle. I think now about the fact that I could handle it because the women before me had handled other things more difficult, more challenging. I had footprints to follow. So I ended that conversation. I had to get my life together, figure out some resources. That was a very humbling experience for me. I had to rely on financial aid, Pell Grants, scholarships. I had to go to social services and apply for welfare support, something that I had never experienced. It was such a humbling experience for me, but I grew so much in those years. If I'm honest, I was unprepared for nursing school. I had no idea how much time I was going to spend studying again, practicing technical skills, and commuting back and forth from all of my clinical sites. And then the time of raising a baby on my own and being young and not having a lot of life experience or even life skills. But with a lot of support and a lot of love, I persisted. I took one day at a time and I got through. 2.5 years, I walked across the stage at a community college graduation with my associate degree in nursing. I looked out onto the lawn and I saw my almost 2.5-year-old daughter spinning in her pink dress, oblivious to the ceremony around her, just thrilled that she had a new dress and family was there. I also looked out into the audience and I saw my mom, who was smiling, a look of pride on her face, and the other look that I saw very clearly was relief. She and I shared in that moment a reality that my life was changing, and it was changing in so many ways that in that moment I could not fully appreciate. In 2 generations, my graduation changed our family history of functional illiteracy and poverty into financial security and an educational future that valued it deeply. It was amazing what happened that day. I once heard a comedian talk about the difference between a 4-year university graduate and a community college graduate. If you ask someone that went to a 4-year university and you say, "Where'd you go?" they tell you, they just say the school. They say Upstate or Furman or Clemson. You ask somebody that went to a community college, you get a story. And it often starts with, I took some classes, and then I took some time off, and then my car broke down, and then I got married, and then I got a new job, but then I took some more classes. And for some of us, that cycle is a short one. We come back once or twice and we graduate. Sometimes it's 7, 8, 9, 10. These are my people. These are the people that try so hard to be dedicated and passionate, and no matter what they face, they come back and they keep coming back, chasing a goal to make a better life for themselves and a better life for the people that love them. Those are the people that I relate to most closely. I have 4 college degrees. All of them are in nursing, and I am very proud of those. But I am most proud of my associate degree in nursing. It was the degree that grew me the most and changed my life. My grandmother passed away before I got to wear my doctoral regalia. I truly pray that she is proud of me. But even more so, I pray that I am living a life that honors her memory and continues her legacy.
Over the years, I've realized that there are 3 missions that I've been able to encounter. The missions that I accept, the missions that I decline, and the missions that's just thrown in my lap. The missions that's thrown in my lap are the ones that really stick out the most, because those are the missions that really stretch me the most. Because if I go into a store of missions, I will always pick the missions that I know that I can accomplish. But the missions that's thrown in my lap stretch me to be the best version of myself that I can possibly be. But one thing I noticed about all the missions is that every mission that I've ever encountered or that I will encounter is time sensitive. And time stops for nobody. It just doesn't stop. But one thing I realize is that the more I understand the significance of time, the more intentional I am about the use of my time. And one thing that I've come to realize is that over the years, I've been really destined to be successful. And primarily because of this woman right here. If you notice my mother is a dissectologist. That's a person that has a passion for jigsaw puzzles. And if you notice, if you look at her, she's looking at the box as a reference. She's using the box as a reference to look at the various pieces of the puzzle to put the puzzle together. And so my mother has been very instrumental, even in naming me, being the baby boy of the family. She called me Angelo, which means messenger of God. So she was intentional about the use of why did she call me that? Of all other names, she called me Angelo. I love my name. But one thing that my mother also taught me is that my mother always made sure that, Angelo, whatever you do, dress for success in life. If you look at this young man sitting behind the sign, front and center, 5th grade, 1973, sharp as a tack, double-breasted suit, big K pinned it on his shoulder for Kendrick, and a blue velvet collar, clean as a whistle. I often get compliments for the way I dress, but it didn't just start yesterday. 5th grade. It was intentional. Not only did she teach me how to dress, but she taught me how to put stuff together. There is not a mission that is impossible for me. There's nothing that I can't do. Even though life at times may seem like a 1,000-piece puzzle poured in front of me, I learned how to do what it took to make sure that I could get hold to my full potential. Albert Einstein once said this: I think 99 times, finding nothing. I stop thinking, I swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. I myself thought 99 times. I stopped thinking, I swam in silence, and the truth came to me. And what the truth told me was that I was born fearfully born, but wonderfully made. I found out that the truth came to me and said that I am more than a conqueror. The truth came to me and said that there's nothing that I cannot do. I could do all things through Christ. That's what the truth came and told me. So every mission that I have ever faced, I was able to accomplish it because I was able to make a connection with the author and finisher of my puzzle. And when I made that connection with the author of my puzzle, I began to understand how to work the puzzle like my mother worked the puzzle. My mother always worked from the outside, and then she started working on the inside. But see, the outside is everything that most people work on the outside of themselves, how they look into the public. But the most important thing that I found is what's inside of me. And what I found, what was inside of me, was not only did I have the potential, but the more I began to find these different combinations for the different missions, I began to figure out that and identify the various pieces of the puzzle. My journey really began, I began to find more pieces of the puzzle, especially when I joined the United States Army. When I joined the United States Army, they selected me for recruiting duty. That's when I found my niche. I found my niche talking to young people, helping them navigate, helping them understand that they're going to be a product of the decisions that they make, making sure that they understood that there's options out there. What's on your mind? Let's think about it. Let's make sure that we make the best decisions that we possibly can, thinking with the end in mind. What do you want? If you don't have vision, then you don't know what you're looking for. If you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what direction you're going in. If you're leaving Greenville County on a Greyhound bus and you're going to Miami, you do not want to see signs that say Spartanburg. You don't want to see signs saying Gastonia, Charlotte, 20 miles from now. You're headed in the wrong direction. And how do I know that you're heading in the wrong direction? Because of the signs. It's the signs will tell us, am I on track to get this puzzle together? See, as an Army recruiter, I was stationed in Greenville, South Carolina. I was assigned to Greenville Tech. And being assigned to Greenville Tech, I had to set up at Greenville Tech. And the first person I met when I came to Greenville Tech was a man, big, tall man named Curtis Harkness. And Curtis Harkness looked at me. And I'm telling you, he made me feel so welcome at Greenville Tech. Most of the schools that I went to made me feel like a biblical leper. They did not even come near my table. They didn't want me to set up in their school. But Curtis Harkness opened up his arms and said, come on in, Sergeant Kendrick. You could set up right over here. So I set up. But I remember that. But as I kept on going, eventually I retired from the United States Army. I didn't have any formal education, but I had the experience. And I had the audacity to know enough about myself that there's nothing that you cannot do, degree or no degree. But when it came down to coming to Greenville Tech, that was a different story. I've recruited for BMW. I recruited for General Electric. I recruited for Aon Hewitt. I recruited for ITT Tech. I recruited for Virginia College. I applied for Greenville Tech 2 times. And every time I had to fill out that spot or that block where it says, do you have a bachelor's degree? And I said no. It felt like game was over. So I knew that there was something I needed to do if I was going to accomplish this mission. I was going to have to go back to school, so I did. I went to Greenville Tech. Then I transferred to Southern Wesleyan University. And once I got that, then I realized that there was a young man that I met when I worked at ITT years ago named Julio Hernandez. Julio Hernandez was an outstanding young man. And this young man was working at the Northwest campus at this time, so I knew we always kept in contact because I would see him when I was recruited for the Army, and when I was recruiting for the other schools, I would see Julio that was a recruiter for Greenville Tech, and we kept a connection going on. See, sometimes when you're doing this journey and you're trying to put this puzzle together, you need to remember some people that you have met. You need to remember that there's a reason that you meet or you come across paths with certain people. So Julio Hernandez, I talked to him and he told me, yes, you can apply for this position. I told him I had my bachelor's degree, I applied. And lo and behold, when I went to the job interview, Julio was sitting at the table. Julio was on the hiring committee. I said, isn't this peculiar? But you see, the thing about putting your puzzle together, once I realized that all these pieces were already there, everything that was in that pile that where I didn't have a reference to look at, they were all still there. So part of me putting this puzzle together, it just started coming together. I went to different places while I had already applied. And I went to Long Branch Baptist Church, and I saw Dr. Knowles and I saw Dr. World, and they were giving a presentation, and it was like Black history, if I'm not mistaken. And when I left there, I got a call from HR saying, Angelo, we're interested in you for this position at Greenville Technical College. So the pieces of the puzzle were coming together, and all I had to do was just continue to march and continue to utilize my potential to make sure that I could deliver whatever needed to be delivered. And lo and behold, before I knew it, I was recruiting for Greenville Technical College. I never doubted 1 minute. I never doubted 1 second that this mission was possible. I knew that I had the potential. I knew I had the winning combination to do anything. Now I'm the program coordinator over a program called the African American Male Scholars Initiative. They put a number on me, and they said, can you get to 200? We were at 130. How about 163? 263. The mission is possible if you choose to accept. All you have to do is make sure that you understand, 1, the mission. Number 2, understand that it's time sensitive. 3, that it's in you to accomplish it. Who are you following? You can't follow social media and get this. Look at who's in front of you, what direction you're going in. The mission is possible. This woman, they say we look alike, but I owe a lot from the beginning. She never doubted, she never wavered of what I could do. My blood type is B positive, and it really is. It's all I know, but the mission is possible.
Fall is here, hear the yell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens, I can tell that we are gonna be friends. I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
Hello, friends. How's everybody doing? Now that we've gone to church, yes! So, that song is by Jack White and the White Stripes, if you don't know. There's so many songs about friendship because friendships are so important. Any favorite songs about friendship? Do you have a song?
Got a friend in me.
You got a friend in me. Is that Toy Story?
Yeah.
You got a friend in me. Who said something over here?
Yes.
What you got?
James Taylor.
You got a friend. Yep. And Golden Girls, do we all know how that goes? Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road. Okay, we're done. Okay. Yes, friends are so important. What comes to mind when you think of your friend, a best friend? Maybe your parents. Could be a tribe of friends, your spouse. But friends have value. We know that. And what I want to know is, how do you measure up as a friend? How do you treat your friends? Do you treat them as if they were worth mere pennies or spare change, or are they priceless to you? On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, how many dollar signs would you give yourself as a friend? You're a good friend. You're a good friend. We got some good friends. Some, it's hard to make friends, but isn't it true to have a friend is to be a friend? Realizing the worth of your relationships can cause a shift in your perspective that, well, it forces you to realize what's really important in your life. Friends can enrich our lives in innumerable ways. Friends also have value in other ways. If you have lots of friends, you're probably very healthy. That's right. Studies show that if you have meaningful friendships, healthy relationships, you are healthier. You probably don't have depression or high blood pressure. Older adults who have deeper connections live longer than their peers with fewer connections. I want to tell you what brought me here today, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I had seen the announcements about Tech Talks for this year. I'd seen last year's, and I loved it. And I thought, gosh, I really want to do this. I felt led, to do it. But I didn't know what I would talk about. And that would interest you. I mean, I could talk, but what would, interest you guys? And so I just thought, I'll just put this on the back burner. And so a couple weeks later, I ran into an old friend. We were downtown Greenville, and by old friend, I mean she's barely 35. So my young old friend ran into her, and we, gosh, it'd been 15 years. We used to volunteer together at a children's charity. And so I gave her my card. She called me. I called her back. We started texting. Next thing you know, we're downtown Well, we're shopping at Anthropology, never been, it was awesome. And then we went to coffee at MJ, the Judson Booksellers. And we're catching up and we're sharing disappointments. And okay, we were talking about guys, like we always did, but we're finishing our coffee. And she looks at me, oh, with tears in her eyes. I can't believe we're here. Thank you so much for calling me. I didn't know how lonely I was. It was wonderful. As we hugged, I had this epiphany. This is what I'm going to talk about. Friendships. As a fundraiser for the Greenville Tech Foundation, the relationships I have with our donors, are as important as the contributions they make to our college and to our students. You know, I was hired during the interview process, it was about 2 years ago. They made a note that, no, I don't have direct fundraising experience. I didn't have development experience in raising funds for a school. But what I did have, 30 years of building relationships with radio listeners because I was a morning radio personality. So for whatever reason, I don't know, it's just in my DNA to build these relationships, to get to know other people. I love people. I love my friends. My friends are so important to me. I have so many different kinds of friends, so many circles of friends, but at the heart of it all, the famous quote by poet Emily Dickinson captures the true essence of what I believe friendships are all about. My friends are my estate. Isn't it true that our friends are like assets, precious assets that go beyond the material? These coins of friendship that contribute to the wealth of our overall happiness and overall well-being. So, back to what I do as a fundraiser, I thought I would share 3 basic principles of fundraising that work in making friends. It's what I've been doing my whole life. The first is identifying or prospecting. The second is cultivating, and third is stewardship. So an example about identifying or prospecting. So after, I was working as a fundraiser for a while, doing okay, doing well. A wonderful lady who had given a significant amount of money was given to me as a prospect. So I couldn't wait to get to know this wonderful person. So she was identified, could be a major donor sometime, maybe in the future. Well, I called her one day and I asked her to lunch at our Culinary Institute of the Carolinas, at the Northwest campus. Well, I had to leave a voicemail. She didn't answer. Then I followed up with an email, as I often do. Well, she wrote me back and she said, I thought you were going to ask me for money. I'd love to go to the luncheon. I wrote back, oh, I'll ask you for money at some point, but not right now. No, we're going to go eat. So we had a great time. And our luncheons if you've never been, you got to make a plan. So we then, before we left, made a plan for our next get-together. Well, we had lunch again. So we met for lunch. And we're sitting there talking and just gabbing and have a great time. She says, Whitson, Monnie Whitson. She said my name again. Whitson, do you know Pat Whitson? And I was like shocked. Yes, that was my mom. Oh my gosh, she says, I knew your mom. I knew your mother. We worked together at Taylor's Elementary. I know. We loved having lunch together in the cafeteria, y'all. Can you believe that? She knew my mom who had passed, and she realized her friend Pat had passed. Well, her value went way up, y'all, because of the connection with my mom. Now we're also friends, too. But you know what? She made a pledge this year 7 times more than her initial investment to the Student Emergency Needs Fund. It's amazing what what our donors do for our school and for me personally. And all of us when we take the time, to get to know people. Second principle, cultivating. This is the act of developing or growing something, kind of like gardening. So here's an example of cultivating. I love these donors. They give to Angelo. They did a huge 5-year pledge this year too for $25,000. I love these folks. So I started cultivating them. Okay, let's get to know each other. Let's do things that are fun and grow. Are we watering our relationships? Are we putting them in the right soil? Kind of thing. And we don't want them to, we want them to flourish. So we cultivate them. And so when I found out that they love the theater, in fact, they came to see me in a show earlier this year at the Simpsonville Arts Center. There they were in the audience. I couldn't believe it. And so after the show, we're hugging, and I'm like, ah! So we're going to go to a show. So I took them to the Pelzer Auditorium. This is the Peace Center of Pelzer. Have y'all heard of that place? You got to go. It's awesome. We had so much fun. So that's what you do in friendships, right? You find out what people like to do. You surprise them, and you do it with them. Bonus, you like doing those things too, right? So the third is stewardship. Well, you can't cultivate, really. You can't steward, until you have cultivated. Stewardship is the act of, the responsible management of something or taking care of something. So we hear stewardship sometimes in church, when you have a stewardship campaign every year, or being a steward of the earth, so same idea. So an example of this is, this was a tough time for me. I was, like I said, in radio for 30 years, and I was in Myrtle Beach. I was a morning radio personality on Easy 105. God, that feels like forever ago. And anyway, I was terminated after about a year. And I was devastated, y'all. If you've ever been in this position, you have no savings, you're not married, there's no roommate, your parents are dead. They are there with you, but they're not there to help you figure out what you're going to do next, okay? I was devastated. I was terrified, really, is the word. I didn't know what to do. I knew my brother couldn't take me in. Where was I going to live? I could cry about it right now thinking about it. But I put the SOS out, right, on social media. Before I could even pack the U-Haul to get me back to Greenville, my hometown, I had several offers for a place to live, for shelter. Hey, live with us. We'll take you in. We've got a garage apartment. I ended up living in a garage apartment at my friend's house. What began as one of the most awful, truly terrible things became one of the most beautiful moments in my life. And it's all because I cultivated those friendships for years. We cultivated each other, these friendships. And it was their turn to take care of me. And I gladly accepted it. I did. It was their turn. I got to experience the other side of that coin. I'd like to leave you with these thoughts. What value have you placed on your friends? What kind of investment have you made in your friends? What kind of equity do you have in those friendships? If you want deeper connections, more meaningful relationships, take stock of your friendships. Maybe you need to perform an assessment, perform an audit, if you will. Are you in the red or are you in the black? Are you putting in more? Are you making more deposits? Are you taking out? Are you withdrawing more? Check your balance. Because I believe the true measure of wealth is found in the faces of our treasured friends.
When I say trust the, you say process. Trust the. Trust the. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. I'm excited that you joined us. I'm excited to share this bold, intuitive, and transformative idea with you today. And I love stories because every story has a process. It doesn't matter if you start a process. It doesn't matter if you fail a process. Every story comes with a process. I wanted to share the story of a process that I went through. It was making a baked macaroni and cheese for my fiance. And I know how much she loves my mom's and my grandma's version. So I decided that I was going to try and make this. So to start this process, I did exactly what any son would do. I called her. And I asked her to help me with the ingredients and help me with the steps. So she helped me. She walked me through it. We walked through the process, and everything was great. My fiance enjoyed it. She loved eating the mac and cheese, so it was worth every step of the process. Now I tried to do the process again. And what I didn't share with you is I tried to do it in a healthy manner. So I used fat-free milk instead of the evaporated canned milk. I had no idea the mac and cheese wasn't going to come out the way it came out the first time. It was funny because my fiance still tried to encourage me and tell me that it was good, but I knew it wasn't good. So I told you my process. What is the process that you need to trust today? For some of you, it may be an educational process. For some of you, it may be a financial process. For some of you, it may be a parental process, because we know children are not always the easiest to deal with. But what is the process that you need to trust today? I suggest that there's 3 things that you need to trust any process. You need consistency, you need commitment, and you need confidence. Through consistency in a process, you get commitment from committing to the process, and you build confidence along the way of the process. So let's start with consistency. When we think about consistency, I suggest that we think about an upward movement. We think of a high elevation, because we think that the more that we do something, we're supposed to be getting better at it. But I suggest that consistency looks like me going to the gym and knowing that every time I go to the gym, there are some days where I give it a whole hour, there are some days where I give it 30 minutes, and there are some days where I just give it 10 minutes because my battery may be low. I think about the same process when I'm reading, because there are some days where I can read the whole chapter of the book, there are some days where I read 10 pages out the book, and there are some days where I just read 1 page. The commonality in what I'm explaining is that it does not matter what percent I'm on, as long as I'm reading, as long as I'm staying consistent in the action, then that means I'm trusting the process of moving forward. And I was thinking about how to show this to you, and I thought about a cell phone, because everybody in here has one. And if you think about how your cell phone works, when your low battery light goes on, when your 50% battery is on, when your full battery is on, it does not matter what percent the cell phone is on, you still can make a call, you still can make the text. And as long as the battery doesn't say that the power is off, and as long as the battery doesn't say that the phone is not working, then you still can continue with the process of how a cell phone works. It's the same way with you in your life. See, there are moments in your life where you may feel like you're empty. You may feel like your battery is low, but you have to trust the process and knowing that you have to show up and be consistent throughout the whole process. Next, let's talk about commitment. What does commitment look like to you? I know that some of you in here, commitment may look like 7 days out the week. For some of you in here, commitment may look like 2 to 3 days out the week. But then for some of you, commitment may look like nothing at all. You may find struggles, you may find challenges in commitment. And I was thinking about how to explain this to you, and the idea came to my head. Commitment for me was starting a business. And I don't know if we have any entrepreneurs in here, but we all know what this process can look like. You're committing to something that's not even promised a return on your investments. You're steady dumping money into something where you're not getting paid up front. But it's through that commitment you keep on building up your company. Jim Rohn said it best. Motivation is what gets you started. Commitment is what keeps you going. When I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, one of the things that they tell me is that it's so hard to keep going in the business. And I was thinking about this, And I remember when I first bought a camera, I had no idea where it was going to take me. I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any experience. But one thing I did have was a little bit of faith. One thing I did have was believing in myself. One thing I did have was knowing that I can make all things possible through Christ. And when I think about the three types of people in life, there's a defeated person, there's a motivated person, and there's a committed person. And I want to talk to you about all three. I suggest that the committed person is the person who just keeps going, who weathers the storm, who has resilience, who doesn't give up, who continues to keep the train moving. The motivated person is the person who gets in rooms like this and starts clapping and gets excited when they hear something that they love to hear, but then they get back out those doors and they don't change anything. The defeated person is the person that is just tired. They've been going at this thing for so long and they're not seeing any progress. They've been going at this thing so long and they're not seeing anything changing. They've been putting their all into the relationship and they don't see any return out of it. Finally, I want to talk about confidence. I was looking at this image and what came to mind was how sometimes we don't want to look into the mirror because we don't like to see what's in the reflection. And the thing that stood out to me was that a lot of times in life, we're the one causing the chaos in the reflection. When I thought about the defeated person, I also wanted to figure out how we get them out of the defeated stage, how we get them to a motivated stage, and get them to the committed stage. And the thing that came to me last night when I was coming up with an idea is these words right here. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So just because your eyes is covered, that doesn't mean that you're giving up on life. That doesn't mean that things will not get better. Matter of fact, let me show you this next image so you can understand what I'm saying. Because when I was looking at this right here, I got a little bit excited because this man has crazy faith. This man has promised faith. This man has working faith. Who in here has some working faith? Is anybody in here who has some crazy faith? Because when I was thinking about this, I thought about me walking across the stage and getting my degree because I'm working so hard right now to make sure that things happen. Matter of fact, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about me signing the dotted line on the deed with my fiance and we getting the for sale sign or the sold sign sitting in front of the house. Better yet, let me do you one better. I was thinking about getting on the lot and getting the new keys off the lot with the new car smell and telling somebody that we just got a brand new car. I wonder if there's anybody in here that can be committed, that can be consistent, and that can be confident and trusting their process. Finally, I'll leave you with a challenge. And I wanted to make sure that this challenge was something that you could take out of here today. The first thing is to never lie to the process. My mom always used to tell me this saying, be careful telling one lie because you're going to have to keep telling more lies to cover up the first lie that you told. I didn't understand that as a kid, but as you start to grow up in life, you start to see that the more you lie, the more you have to cover it. And being from Charleston, we have a little Geechee on us. So my grandmother used to say this saying right here, a lie don't care who tell them. And I was thinking about that because on the other side of lie is the truth. So when I was thinking about trusting a process, I was thinking about what that looked like. And then I started thinking about where the truth comes from, and the truth says, greater is he that's in me than he who is in this world. The truth says that we walk by faith and not by sight. The truth says that we can do anything through Christ. And the truth also says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Second thing, don't rush the process. And I was thinking about how to explain this to you, and this came to mind with when you're driving 60 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour speed limit. There happen to be some lights that come behind you, and you see them in your rearview mirror. And the officer walks up to the car and says, I have to give you a ticket because you've been speeding today. That's the same way with your process. When you feel like you're rushing your process, when you feel like you're moving too fast, give yourself a ticket because you need to slow down. Finally, last but not least, don't cheat the process. Don't get to the final semester in your graduation process and plagiarize your paper. Don't get to the altar and say, I do, and cheat the next day. There's no shortcuts to greatness. So you have to remember that the minute you try to lie to the process, the minute you try to cheat the process, the minute you try to rush the process, is the minute that you did not trust the process. And I was thinking about how to end this off, and I thought about whether you know basketball or not. Everybody's heard of Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan impressed me because he trusted the process. Even though he got cut 3 times, he still continued to hoop and ball. Even though he got taken off the team, he still continued to press forward. And the game that impressed me the most is the flu game. And those of you who may not be familiar with the flu game, even though Michael Jordan had the flu, it was one of the best performing games in his life. So I challenge you today to be the Michael Jordan of your career. I challenge you today to continue to press through the process. And I challenge you today, if you don't do anything else when you walk out of these doors, trust the process.
I'd like to tell you a story about a student who found out at the age of 17 that he was going to be a father. Although not part of his plan, he married the mother of his child and started a family. He was able to finish high school, but he soon realized that it would be difficult to support a family with only a high school degree. So after a few years of struggling financially, he enrolled at the local community college. In his first semester, he worked full-time and took a few classes in the evening, but it became apparent that this would be a long journey. So in the second semester, he quit his job and began going to school full-time. These were challenging years for the family. They rented a small home in an undesirable neighborhood. They stretched food as far as they possibly could, and they spent their Saturdays at the laundromat. And after 3 long years, the student graduated with an associate's degree in mechanical engineering. I'd like to tell you a story about a student who found out at the age of 17 that she was going to be a mother. Although not part of her plan, she married the father of her child and started a family. She was able to finish high school, but soon realized that she would only qualify for minimum wage jobs. When her husband decided to enroll at the local community college, she picked up extra work to try to make ends meet. When he finished his degree, she decided it was her turn to pursue her goals, so she enrolled at the local community college. The family did not want to return to the poverty that they had previously experienced, so she decided it was in her family's best interest for her to work full-time and take a few classes in the evening. And after 5 long years, the student graduated with an associate's degree in computer technology. Now, I'd like to tell you a story about a student who grew up watching both of her parents enroll at the local community college. She knew firsthand the challenges, the struggles, and the rewards of a college degree. Yet, when it came time for her to decide about her future, she wasn't sure what she should do. She was working at Bojangles, and a manager talked with her about a management training program. She had friends who were going away to college, but she knew her parents could not afford to pay. They had just finished college themselves and were trying to get back on their feet. Not to mention, they were going through a pretty tough divorce. So she decided that it was in her best interest to work full-time at Bojangles, begin the management training program, and perhaps, maybe, one day, enroll at the local community college. Right before graduation, a friend invited her to go on a college tour. She really didn't want to go. I mean, what was the point? She had already made her plans. But her friend reminded her of something very important. This was an excused absence from school. And so she went. On the college tour, a financial aid representative talked with the group about a FAFSA, where students could receive assistance for going to college. The financial aid representative also talked with the group about student loans and how students could borrow money to help with college expenses. A faculty member talked with the student about her interest, encouraged her to apply, and told her that she might qualify for a scholarship. And seemingly out of nowhere, a new path was created, one that the student had not even considered an option. After that college tour, she applied, she was accepted, and she started classes that fall. Now, you may be wondering, who are these students? But I got a feeling you've already guessed. It's me. It's my story, and it's the story of my parents. My story continues with me going away to college only to feel very out of place. I felt like the other students knew how to do college, and so after my first week, I went to my advisor to discuss quitting. I really felt like I had made a big mistake, and I was really hoping my job at Bojangles was still there. My advisor encouraged me to give it a little more time. And he said, you know what, let's set up a weekly meeting, and that way I can check in with you to see how things are going. And then he said, why don't you get involved? And so I did. And after my first club meeting, I instantly felt connected. The club advisor was also the director of counseling services, and he became my mentor. Although I had filled out the FAFSA, received free assistance, taken out student loans, and gotten a scholarship, I was still struggling financially. So my advisor recommended I look into work study. So I did. And I landed a job in the admissions office, which became my second home. After changing my major 5 times, that's right, you heard me, 5 times, and stopping out of college multiple semesters to work full-time, I became the first in my family to graduate with a bachelor's degree. It took me 6 years, but I accomplished one of my biggest goals in life. And that is how my story started. Now, I'm guessing there are many similar stories in this room, and I know that some of you have faced far greater challenges than I have, and maybe some of you less. Yet we find ourselves here today, together. Our paths have crossed, certainly no accident that our stories have intersected. You see, we all have a story to tell of how we got here today, but who I think is more important than the main character, who tends to get all the attention, are the supporting characters who play such an important part in determining the direction of our stories. You know, I've tried to be very intentional about thanking the men and women who have played such a pivotal role in my story. From the financial aid representative who helped me with the FAFSA, to my advisor who never let me give up on myself, to my mentor who helped me through some very challenging times, to my faculty who inspired me, and to my work-study family who truly took me in as a member of their own personal families. You know, even though I've thanked them, I'm not sure that they quite understand how different my story would be without them. After graduating with my bachelor's degree, The next chapter included being the first in my extended family to earn a master's degree. It also included a lot of bumps in the roads and twists and turns before finally beginning the chapter that has now included over 20 years of working in higher education, helping students write their stories. As I reflect upon my story and where I am today, I have to wonder if it's by accident that I have spent the last 14 years working at a community college helping students who were just like my mom and dad. I can't tell you how many students I've talked to over the years who have shared stories with me about working full-time and going to school in the evening and struggling financially and spending their Saturdays and their evenings at the kitchen table while their children look on and they're working on their assignments. And these stories, they make me smile because I know firsthand that they are modeling the importance of education and the lasting impact that that will have on their children's stories. I had someone recently, someone outside of Greenville Tech, ask me, why do you care so much? And to be honest, I didn't know how to respond. I hadn't thought about that, and the question really bothered me. So I spent some time really thinking about my why. And the conclusion that I came to is that it is important for me to play a supporting role in students' stories. I am a faculty member who can inspire a student's next chapter. I am a supporter of campus resources. I am an advocate for campus engagement. I am a champion of work study, and I am an advisor who can determine the direction of a student's story. Never in a million years did I think I would be working at a college. College was not even supposed to be part of my story. So it really goes to show that you never know where your story will take you. So what does the next chapter in your story look like? What will serve as your inspiration? I hope that your next chapter will include many stories of you reaching out and lending a helping hand to those who need your assistance, and thanking those who have helped you along the way. I hope there will be multiple pages of you realizing that you have the power to change someone else's story. One of my favorite quotes is from Marianne Williamson, who says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." Powerful beyond measure. I challenge you to use your power to transform someone else's story. And by doing so, you will create a chapter in your life that is everlasting.
Well done. Wow, right? Oh, we hope that, yes. I think we hope that you've appreciated and enjoyed hearing these talks today as much as we have. We want to take just a moment to acknowledge and thank our speakers today for the hard work they put into preparing and delivering their talks. It is no small feat to stand up on a stage like this with a bright light in your face and speak to a crowd, much less to share something that's deeply personal and important to you. And so I hope you all know how appreciative we are that you were willing to do that and for what you shared with us today. We thank you a lot for that. Now, perhaps you in the audience have an idea worth sharing or a story to tell, and our hope is that you will consider joining us as a speaker at next year's event.
And as we wrap up today, our speakers are going to be down here at the front, and they would love to meet you and speak with you, and perhaps you have a word of encouragement for them. And we just want to again say thank you for joining us for Tech Talks 2023, our thoughts, our stories, our people. Thank you all.